Let's bring my dog. My dog, Brandon Johnson is largely becoming my favorite person on the internet. Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago. Thank you, Sharon Compton. I'm going to be reading that super chat shortly. Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, that is not even 1 year into his tenure. You guys elected him in office. Is largely becoming one of my, shout out to Rita. I appreciate you, Rita Cameron. I'm going to be reading that super chat shortly also. Thank you, my love. Brandon Johnson is largely becoming one of the best people, the greatest people that I have been watching and studying and following as a public figure. And listen, don't tell me, Anton, you shouldn't be following Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson is the mayor of Chicago. Should we not be paying attention to what is going on in all of our cities so that we can either duplicate it or run away from it? Did you know? I bet you Chicagoans didn't even know this. I'm willing to put the house on the line that Chicagoans see. When I tell y'all that it all comes back down to the money, and y'all say, "Well, Anton, how is this relevant to money than the Millionaire Morning Show?" Well, what is going on with your city ultimately affects what your lifestyle is going to be, and it all comes back down to the money because you the taxpayers. This is your money. They basically taking your money, and it's a piggy bank for migrants. That's a fact. That's a fact. Did you know that Chicago currently is at a burn rate of over $30 million per month? $30 million per month and growing as far as how much money that they're allocating towards issues with regard to the migrant crisis. Did you know that Chicago is dealing with a budget deficit of over $500 million? What's up, Hassan? Did you know that the budget deficit in Chicago is above, meaning that the amount of money that they have to spend in order to make sure that the city has services, garbage, water, pickup, legislators, salaries, police officers, firefighters. Did you know that they're over $500 million in one of the best economies in the world, of over $500 million in the budget deficit? Somebody said, what about Detroit? Detroit's budget is balanced. That's a fact, though. We actually have a surplus. Yes, I am intimately familiar and connected with what's going on in my city. Detroit's budget is at a surplus, not a deficit. We are not a sanctuary city. Detroit's budget is at a surplus, not a deficit. What about it? Look it up. Public information. I am intimately familiar with what's going on in my city. All of the city council members, mayors, everybody that's participating in each legislative branch, I am familiar with. I talk to my legislators. We are in a surplus, not a deficit. Chicago is in a $500 million plus deficit and growing. Let me bring you in, help you to understand what's going on in your city. Listen, don't get mad at what's going on in my city. Pay attention to what's going on in your city. I know what's happening over in my city. What's happening in your city?
The city opened its books today for the first time in a while, and the picture wasn't pretty. There's a $538 million deficit. The question now, how will Mayor Johnson tackle it in next month's budget? CBS 2's political reporter Chris Ty digs into the numbers.
Don't screw it up.
Remember that? Remember her? Every time I seen her, I was thinking to myself, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Listen, by the time that Mayor Brandon Johnson come out of office, you're going to be begging for Lori Lightfoot to come back. You're going to be begging for Lori Lightfoot to come back. By the time Brandon Johnson get done mopping the floor with y'all and taking your money and giving it over into house, feed, give health care, clothing, food, shelter, so on and so forth. You're right, let's get it. Detroit has a 4.9% budget increase last year. I am absolutely correct. 100%. See, I'm not going to get on here and tell you anything that I can't bring y'all to the front of the congregation if I can't have my own city. Together, we are we are thriving over here in Detroit. We got buildings going up. Everything is going well. We got billionaires. Yo, it is popping here. It's popping here. Y'all gonna beg for Beetlejuice to come back by the time that Brandon Johnson get done mopping the floor with y'all.
We're delivering this up on a silver platter. Continue the work, stay the course, and things will continue to shine bright for the city of Chicago.
That's how Chicago's last mayor framed the state of Chicago's budget. In April, Mayor Lightfoot forecasted an $85 million deficit for next year. 5 months later, that number has ballooned to a $538 million deficit forecast.
I feel like something just got stuck in my chest, and I don't even know. I didn't even eat anything, and I feel like I just started choking for no reason. She was already running the city into the ground. She had already projected an $85 million shortfall in the city's coffers. Brandon Johnson said, I see that $85 million and I raise. He playing poker with the city. He said, I see that $85 million and I raise you to $538 million. I see that $85 million, that shortfall that we projected, and Brandon Johnson has been in office less than a year, and he said, I'll raise you to a $538 million shortfall in a deficit. And we're going to build a tent city. Don't worry about it. I have never seen, outside of maybe Eric Mays over there in New York, over there running that city into the ground, I have never seen in my entire life a city that is ran by, lived in by black people, police force, mayor, city council, treasury. I've never seen a city being ran into the ground as fast as I see it right now. Nope. Yakar says, where did that $400 million come from? Lawyer was lying. No, she not. One thing that she wasn't doing was she wasn't lying about the budget. The $85 million shortfall was based off of what was real and the numbers that was projected. The $538 million is largely tied to the migrant crisis. Don't worry, we're going to get in there.
Mayor Johnson writing this gap is driven by several factors, including rising personnel, pension, and contractual costs, as well as the cost of care for new migrants arriving to the city.
Let me read that one more time. Mayor Johnson, he liked to throw all of that other type of stuff on top of it before he get to the core of the issue. The gap is driven by several factors, including rising personnel. You mean you had to hire more people? Well, you certainly didn't hire more police officers. Pension and contractual costs. So now you're blaming it on the police officers again, right? As well as the cost. Here's the real reason. Now he gave you the real numbers, right? As well as the cost to care for new migrants arriving to the city. The difference between $85 million in a shortfall, which they should have balanced the budget in the very beginning, and $538 million shortfall in 1 year is care for new migrants arriving to the city. You can't make this up. This is not my opinion. These are pure numbers. They opened up the books, and this is facts. This is public information. This is not anything that I'm making up. This is public information. They're averaging and growing on a monthly basis, spending over $30 million. When Trump said close off the borders and give the money over into the people to be able to police our borders more effectively, they said, no, open it up. We're not giving you no money. Now, New York, Chicago, and all the rest of these sanctuary cities are then fumbling the bag because it's costing them an egregious amount of money. Your money, taxpayer money. You go to work every day, pay a crazy amount of taxes, and they giving it over into making sure that they take care of people that they don't even know who they are. That's a fact, though. You said you wanted people in office, not necessarily that had business acumen, that stood up for what it was that you wanted from a political perspective, that actually aligned with your values, your character, and the moral. You wanted somebody in office that looked like you, and this is what you get. You wanted somebody that had the spiked hair, the gray beard, dress nice, communicate effectively, sound like your pastor and your preacher in your church. Well, this is what you get. Yakar said, no, it was $145 million spent on migrants. It's written in the same article. No, it's $149 million spent so far. A budget is projected, meaning what they anticipate spending long term. See, I need y'all to really understand how to look at things from a business perspective, because you're showing your stripes. You're showing that you really don't know what you're talking about. Budget projections are based on what it is that you anticipated spending based off of the new information that you get. So they revise the budget based off of different factors, largely tied to the migrant crisis. And now they're spending an egregious amount of money and they're getting more migrants in every single day, meaning that that number is going to continue to go up significantly if they do not understand exactly what the shortfall is coming from. Come on, man. I need y'all to really be quick on your toes here. I can't be the only C student in here. I can't be the only C student in here. You got to give me some new information.
The forecasted cost to feed and house migrants next year in Chicago, $200 million, more than a third the total deficit.
Shows the need that we need some assistance from the federal government.
36th Ward Alderman
Now
Gilbert
you begging the
Villegas
government.
hoping for help.
Now they doing the same thing that these modern women is doing. Listen, Brandon Johnson and his administration is no different than modern women that's sitting here begging the federal government for a handout. I need Biden. I need you to give me some more monies. I need you to give me some more monies, Biden. That's what you do? You don't know how to get your own house in order, so you're doing the same thing that all of these blackity blacks are doing? You asking for reparations? Biden.
Washington on the migrant front commends the mayor for, it appears, sticking to his campaign promise not to raise property taxes to offset all this.
We're going to have to, again, take a look at the efficiencies, take a look at those other levers.
But here's the thing. Who's in your legislative branches if he don't even know that the property taxes has been raised over 55% in the majority of areas of Chicago? Now that they're getting the property tax bills, they actually have raised property taxes. And so when they tell you that they're raising property taxes because the value of your property is going up, it's a lie. It's a white lie. They're raising property taxes because they have a budget deficit and a shortfall that they have to make up for because Biden ain't giving them no more money. The property taxes have been raised. I just reported on it earlier in the week. Property taxes have went up in some areas of Chicago over 55%. That is a fact. That is a fact, though. Property taxes in Chicago is exploding. So I don't want to hear no politician sitting here talking this nonsense to me. You can't finesse me. I'm more informed about what's going on in Chicago than the very people that's voting in Chicago. How is that a thing? Jesus Christ.
Levers that we can pull. No one has an appetite for property taxes. As a matter of fact, as we're starting to see businesses and people are starting to recover from the pandemic, we want to make sure that we're not stymieing the economic activity in the city of Chicago.
Sarah Wetmore of the Civic Federation says those details are likely to come next month when the mayor presents his formal budget. And she says there will be some success stories to share.
No.
What they're seeing is additional recovery in some areas, such as hotel tax,
Shout out
which
to MC.
they're projecting will come
I'm
in
going to be reading that
above
super
budget.
chat shortly.
But with debits outpacing credits, Villegas says the city needs to look for inventive ways to get ready for next year.
Over 1,200 positions that are vacant. When you take a look at the dollar amount around that, it's a couple $100 million.
Next month's budget rollout by Mayor Johnson could include a realignment of resources, he says. And of note,
this is all corporate speak. This is just tongue in cheek. We're going to have a realignment in resources. One of your people just said that they got over 1,200 vacancies, meaning that those are people that's not even on a payroll. So you can't say that it's personnel costs. You can't say that it's budget. You can't say that it's budget related to payroll because you got less on the payroll than you actually need in order to really be providing the optimal city services. Yo. What we talking about? What are we talking about, huh? What are we talking about? When y'all gonna start holding y'all legislators accountable for what it is that they presenting y'all?
note, Uncle Sam's not going to jump in here and solve this deficit problem at the last minute. Money earmarked for cities like Chicago for pandemic-related costs cannot use that money to bridge deficit problems. It must be spent on new projects. At city.
And this is unfortunate. This is very much unfortunate. This is so unfortunate. that y'all continue to subject yourself to it. And instead of holding yourselves accountable for who y'all voted for, because these people are just a reflection of the people that voted for them. Y'all said y'all wanted this. Don't sit here and complain about it now. Don't complain about the thing that you voted for. He didn't get into office because he just came in as a dictator and took over things. He got into office because y'all voted for him to get in there. You just going from bad to worse. Going from bad to worse. Shout out to Chicago, man. Good. Jesus Christ. God bless us.